The Galactic Council's mockery. Blood dripped from the human ambassador's mouth as the alien council members' cruel laughter echoed in the Grand Chamber. They mocked humanity as a weak, primitive species, oblivious to the depths of human resilience and ingenuity. Captain Adam Pence, a man of steely resolve, stood tall at the podium, his gaze unwavering as he faced the juring council. The Jaffer chairman, a slender blue-skinned alien, demanded Earth's surrender, confident in the superiority of his species. But Pence was not one to be easily intimidated. He pulled out a quantum communicator, a device that signaled the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's struggle. "With this," he said, his voice calm yet firm, "I have signaled our secret army hidden in space. You have underestimated us for the last time. Earth will never surrender. We will fight to our last breath." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Dozens of alien representatives leaped to their feet, shouting in their native tongues and gesturing wildly. But Pence stood his ground, his hand steady as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black handgun. The guards, towering figures of muscle and armor, lunged at him, but they were too slow. A blinding flash of blue light filled the chamber as Pence fired his weapon, reducing the guards to ash. "This," he said, his voice cutting through the shocked silence, "is a plasma rifle. Just one of the many advanced technologies we've developed in secret." The council members stared in stunned silence as Pence turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of fear-stricken aliens. Humanity had made its move, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The hidden army revealed. The story of Pence's bold stand spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, alien citizens huddled around screens, their eyes wide with disbelief as they watched the grainy footage from the council chamber. Some dismissed it as a desperate bluff, but others whispered that humanity had always been an unknown quantity, capable of surprises that no one could predict. On the Jaffer homeworld, the chairman paced his throne room, his mind racing with thoughts of retribution. "Mobilize the fleet," he commanded his generals. "Every ship, every soldier. We must crush these humans before they become a real threat." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Captain Pence was welcomed by Commander Alexei Novak, the leader of the Orion Guardians, the secret army that Pence had mentioned. The Guardians were the best of the best, trained for decades in preparation for this very moment. They had technology that could turn the tide of any battle, and they were ready to use it. "We need to be ready," Pence said, his voice grim. "The Jaffer will come for us, and they won't be holding back." "We're ready," Novak replied, his voice steady. "The Guardians have tricks up their sleeves that will make the Jaffer wish they had never heard of Earth." The Orion Guardians began their preparations. Soldiers checked their plasma rifles and powered up their exo-armor, while scientists made final calibrations to experimental weapons. Stealth ships slipped out of camouflaged hangars, taking up positions on the fringes of the solar system, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The first strike. The Jaffer fleet, a vast armada that darkened the stars, approached Earth's solar system with grim determination. They believed that their superior numbers and firepower would crush the humans quickly. But they were wrong. As the first Jaffer ships crossed the boundary into Earth's territory, the Guardians struck. Novak, standing on the bridge of his cloaked battle cruiser, watched as dozens of human ships decloaked and opened fire. Plasma beams and gravitic torpedoes tore into the Jaffer ships, ripping through their shields as if they were paper. The Jaffer tried to fight back, but their shots went wide, unable to lock onto the human vessels. The Guardians, using advanced cloaking technology, were nearly invisible to the enemy sensors. The battle was a symphony of destruction, with the humans as the conductors. On the Jaffer flagship, the chairman roared with frustration. "Regroup, counterattack, crush these insolent apes." But the Guardians didn't let up. They pressed their advantage, blasting Jaffer ships into clouds of debris. Fighters darted between the capital ships, strafing the enemy with rapid-fire plasma cannons. The Jaffer, for the first time, realized that they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. A desperate defense. In the midst of the battle, a priority message came through to Commander Novak. The human colony on Proxima Centauri B was under attack by Jaffa ground forces. Novak made a snap decision, dispatching Lieutenant Ivanova and her team to defend the colony. Ivanova's drop ship hurtled through the planet's atmosphere, the hull glowing red-hot from the friction. As the ramp lowered, she and her team leaped out, their weapons at the ready. The colony was in chaos, with civilians running for shelter as Jaffa troops advanced. Ivanova and her team fought with a ferocity that the Jaffa had never seen before. Their advanced armor shrugged off enemy fire as they cut through the Jaffa ranks. They reached the colony's main shelter, where hundreds of civilians were huddled in fear. "We're here to get you out," Ivanova shouted, pounding on the door. The civilians poured out, relief etched on their faces as they boarded evacuation shuttles. The Guardians held the line, fighting in brutal close quarters to protect the fleeing civilians. Just as it seemed the battle was turning against them, reinforcements arrived. Fresh troops and armored vehicles dropped from orbit, turning the tide of the fight. The Jaffa, faced with this new onslaught, began to fall back. They had never encountered an enemy like this, one that fought with such skill and determination. The battle rages on. Back in orbit, the Jaffa fleet began to retreat, but Commander Novak knew the battle was far from over. The Jaffa regrouped, forming a wall of metal and fire as they prepared for a final, all-out assault. The Guardians met them head-on. Human ships danced through the enemy formation, picking off targets with surgical precision. Novak's battle cruiser shuddered under the impact of Jaffa fire, but the crew held steady. "We can't take much more of this," the tactical officer reported, shields holding at 60%. Novak gritted his teeth. They had to hold the line. The fate of Earth depended on it. Just then, a distress call came through from the human colony on Proxima Centauri B. Jaffa ground forces were attacking the settlement. Novak knew he couldn't abandon the space battle, but he also couldn't leave the colonists to fend for themselves. He made a snap decision, sending Lieutenant Ivanova and her team to defend the colony. The turning point. Ivanova and her team hit the ground running, their suits' thrusters slowing their descent as they landed in the middle of the colony's chaos. Buildings burned, and the sound of weapons fire filled the air. Civilians ran in panic, trying to find shelter from the Jaffa onslaught. The Guardians fought with unmatched ferocity, their advanced armor and weapons cutting through the Jaffa ranks. They reached the colony's main shelter, where hundreds of civilians were huddled in fear. "We're here to get you out," Ivanova shouted, pounding on the door. The civilians poured out, relief etched on their faces as they boarded evacuation shuttles. The Guardians held the line, fighting in brutal close quarters to protect the fleeing civilians. Just as it seemed the battle was turning against them, reinforcements arrived. Fresh troops and armored vehicles dropped from orbit, turning the tide of the fight. The Jaffa, faced with this new onslaught, began to fall back. They had never encountered an enemy like this, one that fought with such skill and determination. Humanity's triumph. With the Jaffa retreating, the Orion Guardians regrouped, preparing for their next move. Captain Pence and Commander Novak stood in the command center, studying a holographic map of the Jaffa Empire. "We've bought ourselves some breathing room," Pence said, tracing the lines of the map with his finger. "But the Jaffa won't stay down for long. We need to hit them where it hurts." Novak nodded, his face grim. "As long as their empire stands, humanity will never be safe." Pence pointed to a pulsing red dot on the map. "There, the Jaffa homeworld, Xanthus Prime. It's the heart of their empire. If we can take it out, the rest of their empire will crumble." Novak frowned, crossing his arms. "That's a tall order, Pence. Xanthus Prime will be heavily defended. We'd be flying into the jaws of the beast." "I know it's risky," Pence said, meeting Novak's gaze. "But it's our best chance. If we can capture the council, We can force them to recognize humanity's independence. It's the only way to end this war for good." Novak was silent for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "All right, we'll do it your way, but we're going to need every advantage we can get." With the support of the Iliani, a mysterious and technologically advanced alien species that had been secretly aiding humanity, the Guardians launched a daring assault on Xanthus Prime. The battle was fierce, with the Guardians using every trick and technology at their disposal to overcome the Jaffers' formidable defenses. In the end, it was the Iliani's knowledge of the Jaffers' weaknesses that tipped the balance. With their help, the Guardians breached the heart of the Jaffer Empire, capturing the Council and forcing them to negotiate. Humanity had won its freedom, but the cost had been high. Captain Pence, Commander Novak, and the rest of the Guardians stood on the surface of Xanthus Prime, looking out over the smoking ruins of the Jaffer capital. "We did it," Pence said, his voice tinged with exhaustion. "We really did it." Novak clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You did good, Pence. You did good." As the sun set on the ruins of Xanthus Prime, humanity had proven its strength and resilience. They had faced the might of the galaxy and emerged victorious. And they would continue to fight, to survive, and to thrive in a universe that had finally learned to fear the name of humanity.